Hello and welcome to Single Parent Success Stories. Today's guest is Vanessa Rae, and she's joining us from Latrobe, Pennsylvania. She's a single mom of one daughter. First and foremost, she's a spiritual woman who dreamt of being a mom since she was 5 years old. Vanessa is a coach and counselor who is passionate about women and girls feeling right and good enough in their comfortable and confident bodies, as well as being a mystic, a singer, speaker, and healer. Welcome, Vanessa. It is a pleasure to have you.
Thank you so much, Irina. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. So please share with us who is Vanessa?
Well, I'm a lot of things. In the most recent years, I really started calling myself a bit of a modern Renaissance woman in that I really have had several, like, I'm a multi passionate person, and most of my passions have been with me my entire life, or at least since I was very, very young. Um, and being a mother is at the forefront of that. As you said in my intro, I ever since I could remember, I wanted to be a mom. Of course, I didn't really know what that meant. You don't know at 5 like what it actually entails. But I remember, dreaming, daydreaming, like living dreaming, awake dreaming about I don't think I had all these words for it at the time. I wouldn't have called it miraculous probably at 5, years old, but it felt like such a gift to that would happen, that would be possible, that women got to do that. I remember thinking I'm so lucky to be a woman, to be able to have this opportunity to carry a baby, to create a baby, to have a baby, for it to be mine. And we can talk about that too, mine, but to love it and have it love me. And so that's a big part of how I describe myself, and what I think of myself as, just because it's so deep in my heart. So that's one part of it for sure, and that's obviously why I'm here today, is because I'm a mom. But I'm also a long time spiritual practitioner. And again, I started at such an early age that there weren't words for it for me at the time. I didn't know what I was doing. Not that I necessarily know what I'm doing now, but I did follow and continue to follow this, what feels natural to me, what feels inspired and intuitive to me, to what I call now, meditation or prayer, communing with kind of the invisible divine, the great mystery, and just have done that in one way or another since I was very young. Now it is like more of a formal spiritual practice, with kind of a ritual and a practice and a daily thing, that I incorporate different things and really just have my own experience of it. That's a big, really, really big part of who I consider myself as, and a big part of how I'm able to function, that helps me function and grow and expand and process being a human, in the way that I want to, that feels serving, not just to me, but as a mom, as a coach, as a person in the world, as a community member, as just another human being here. So I definitely hold that in my identity. And then I'm also, along, I think very much in tandem with that, is being a healer of some sort. Don't exactly think of myself as the healer. I believe we heal ourselves. Healing, I'm a facilitator of healing, and have done so on myself in many ways, through many different issues and things, but also facilitate and help others facilitate that for themselves. I started training in different modalities in my early 20s, and I'm still doing it in my mid 40s. And so it's a part of how I am, how I relate, And then the last part that I think is a big part is that I'm a musician and a singer and use my voice in a variety of ways, everything from kind of a more personal chanting, healing, sacred voice work to I have a show tomorrow night and I'm singing karaoke at an event, you know. My degree is in music, and I've written a lot of music and done more creative stuff and more public stuff. And I would say those are like tenets of my expression in this lifetime.
Thank you. I love it. So we have a lot of similarities in
Oh,
terms of
yeah.
being multi-passionate and in different areas. I also do singing.
That's great. I remember, I think we had talked about that. And, you know, being a mom and a single mom and having many things that are feel really deeply important. I feel like my life would be a little incomplete if I didn't do any if all of those were missing, or even just one of those was missing, my full fulfillment lacks. So even though I don't have to do them all every day, and there, you know, times of my life that I do, like right now, the coaching work, which I didn't really mention, but it's kind of in the healing and spirituality and career for me. That's taking a huge forefront, which is great because I have a mission to help women and girls in an important way. But that means, you know, music or some of the other things, there's this constant balance that I find as a single parent. It's just there's just more there. There's just more on your plate, you know,
Yes.
and then the self-care.
Yeah. So
Um,
please share with us, how did you become a single parent? What are some
yeah,
of the things you struggled with, things you wish you knew?
yeah. So, as you mentioned, and you know, as I said, I always wanted to be a parent. Marriage and partnership was kind of secondary to me. You know, I didn't consciously head out to be a single parent. I didn't say I'm gonna have a baby no matter what exactly.
Right.
But, you know, to be totally honest now, which is easier than it was then, the baby thing for me, the being a mom thing was a definite I want this. Um and at 29 I got married and definitely wanted children. And my ex-husband was I thought he'd be a really great dad, but he was always a little I don't know, you know, there's so many, the world is so you know, like all kind of a little bit of resistance that I think now um I would have taken more heed of. I would have been a little more like, maybe I should trust him in that he's not saying, yes, I definitely want to have kids, let's do this. And now it's going to be different for every relationship and every person. And, you know, some other men or partners have said that and they have a child and it's like the best thing that's ever happened to them. But I think, you know, for my particular situation, had I been really responsible and honest with myself at the time, I probably would have checked in and realized my ex-husband was already not really matching me, or, you know, I wasn't matching him. We were a mismatch in our life goals and what we wanted. And we moved forward anyway. We got married at about 2 years into our marriage. I felt like I had waited long enough because I had been waiting a while. And I felt like, you know, we're married. I'm ready. At the time, I was 30.
Mm-hmm.
And even though we weren't in a financially comfortable position, we had food and shelter. And again, it was, I think, my biological clock, but also just my heart and what I wanted. And I was very clear and strong with him and said, and not pushy, but very clear and strong. And I said, I'm ready. Like, I've wanted this for a while. You knew I wanted this when we were dating. You knew I wanted this when we were married. I'm ready. And so we kind of made a, what's the word? We kind of made a compromise in a way. And again, this is where, this is where another lesson is learned for me, in that this compromise felt like he was willing to do something he wasn't really ready to do,
Right.
or me doing something that I didn't really want to do, which I don't think is a healthy compromise. It's not the kind of compromises I would do now, like in any relationship with my daughter, I do have a boyfriend now, not a live-in, but I do have a boyfriend. But, this again is an example of something I learned kind of the hard way, of him saying, yes, okay, I'm ready to, I'll let you kind of be pregnant. If you let me explore more of an open relationship and dating others, which for me, it wasn't something I was interested in. It kind of hurt me, and I was only going to do that because I wanted my baby, and I wanted my baby that bad. And so that was already a foundation that I don't recommend. And now if both are okay with that, no judgment against polyamory. Obviously, if both people, are okay with it. So we were already starting a little rocky. So, when you ask, like, how did I end up a single parent? I go back to, like, some of these things. So we got pregnant within 2 months. I was elated. He was shocked. Although it's like, how this works, I definitely didn't get myself pregnant, and, we weren't using protection. So, my reaction was unbelievable. I can't believe this is finally happening. And his was like, kind of like, oh, what are we going to do? And I'm like, what? Oh, we're going to have a baby. So, most of the pregnancy was really good for me. Like, I physically felt well. I was elated. A lot of things started to come up. The seeds that I had already mentioned that were there were starting to sprout, which led to us divorcing, which is like, he wasn't providing. He wasn't really, it wasn't a joint venture, in that I felt very alone, a lot of my pregnancy. I also felt like, I guess I should be in this alone, which I don't agree with now. But at the time I was like, well, I knew I wanted to do this more. I'll pay for all the crib and the clothes. I'll go to all the, and it wasn't that he wasn't involved at all. It's just that I didn't really feel like I had a partner. In a lot of ways I didn't, emotionally, physically, financially. I really wasn't. And again, at the time where I just kind of felt like, well, that's kind of what I get, or what I deserve, because this is my thing, in a way. But it wasn't. I mean, it was, but, it wasn't really working for me.
Right.
Really, really, really. And so come time to having, she's a girl, still is a girl. Having my baby Violet, starting to really notice his lack of ability to be there for me and for Violet in a way that I would sometimes put the blinders on, because I couldn't even really process it and deal with it, being like a new mom, having hormones, being scared, not even being ready to grasp some of the kind of hardship, emotional hardship, feeling of kind of abandonment, and the feeling of being on my own was something I couldn't fully go there within myself, because I'm this new mom of a newborn. And even though I would have a friend that would say, like, hey, he's really not towing the line, I kind of was like, no, this is my, I was a little more defensive, even not in a harsh way, but I was just like, I was like, this is all because I was also balancing working and providing for myself because he wasn't providing for me.
Mhm.
And um and it was really hard, and I realized, this is all really the start of the end. I was thinking and hoping he'd really step up more when we had our daughter. I thought he would. I was hoping it would do what I've seen and heard it has done for other men, and sometimes it's a woman, but
Mhm.
most of the time in what I know of, it's men, where that switch gets lit and they're like, must provide. Nothing is more important than providing for my child. Or
Right.
the instant they meet their child, they're so in love and they have this desire to take care of the baby and bond with the baby. And it's not that he didn't at all, but it definitely wasn't satisfying or enough for me. It was really falling short. And I would say within 6 months of having her, um, and really struggling to manage him and what he was doing, kind of still kind of dating on the side with my permission, but also with the understanding of like, this is hard for me and I don't like this.
Right.
But I also had this baby, and I also it was living this unbelievable dream, and felt incredibly blessed that I did love my baby as much and even more than I thought. Like, instead of being disappointed, like, oh, I built it up and now it's just, yeah, there were moments, of course, where it was like, I'm tired, this is hard, I'm bored, I'm sick of doing the same thing, or the grief of this not being the way that I knew it could have been partner wise.
Right.
I still grieve for that and never got that because I didn't have another baby and redo that experience, and I had wanted that for a while. But I was also in this kind of heaven of, here's my baby. And it really, since I had her, it was her and I. And my ex-husband was doing his own thing, and he would stay. I moved kind of my bedroom into hers, so her and I kind of shared a bedroom. Um, and he had our old bedroom. And so like the separation really started. And when she was about 6 months old, it was the first time that I was really serious about, this is, I want to leave, or I want him to leave, really, because it was the house that I rented. It was my parents owned it. It was my house that he moved into. So,
Mhm.
and I brought it up to him and wanted to start separating, and long story short, that isn't when we fully finally divorced. I gave it one more year after that. I kind of said to myself, okay, I'm going to kind of not complain. I'm going to do everything. And this is kind of where the self-development, all the coaching work, all the
Mhm.
self work came in for me personally, is like, I'm going to not judge. I'm not going to project. I'm not going to blame. I'm going to take responsibility for my part of this relationship. I'm going to give it a year um, of, just doing everything I can to be happy in this relationship. And then if after a year, um, it's really evident, that'll be it for me. And that's pretty much what happened. We had kind of a nice year in that I let the should I, shouldn't I, and the kind of judging and blame and the stuff that starts to happen, I kind of let it go and suspended the decision for a year. And um, he hadn't changed or grown into someone else, which is really not a surprise. And then when she was a year and a half, I just kind of like a switch was like, okay, I gave it my all. I feel good now about I can walk away. And it's another reason I decided to leave is like, she's 1.5. She's not going to remember this. It is going to be in her subconscious, of course. And then in the future, I'll obviously tell her about this. Not going to be a secret. She's going to know that her dad and I aren't together. But, she won't have memories of us divorcing. She won't have memories of us living together. I also felt like I'll have a chance I still wanted more kids. I wanted her to have siblings. I wanted to kind of that feeling of doing it all over again and doing it right in a way for the things that weren't right, partner wise and relation wise, and being supported. And there were certainly some fears of like, I already have a baby, maybe I won't find someone, maybe I'm getting old, which is ridiculous because I think I had her at 33. 33? Yeah. So I was probably about 34, 35, but it's a time where you start feeling like, you think about these things, you consider them. And we divorced then. It took about a year. And I honestly, it wasn't that much harder because he was such a small support in my life and in her life, divorcing was hard, but it wasn't that he wasn't missed that much because he wasn't that helpful. So I'll feel bad if he watches this podcast, which I'm sure he won't, or this video. But it's also, it's actually the truth for me. So, the financial thing wasn't a huge hardship. In fact, it was a little more helpful because then he would take her a couple of days a week and I would actually have some time. And he would pay a couple $100 a month, which wasn't much, but it was probably, like at least it was like, there wasn't a fight. It was like, here's your $250, And so in some ways it really streamlined things and made it easier for me. So yeah, that's how I became a single parent, to answer that question.
Thank you. I think we enter in a relationship, and when we dream of being moms, we don't dream of being single moms.
No. And even though that concept wasn't out of the realm of possibility for me, I certainly didn't know what it would be like.
Right.
And like you had mentioned earlier, some of the regrets or the things that you would do differently. I definitely have those, and I even now that she's 11, I mean, I do a lot of open, transparent parenting.
Mm-hmm.
And so when it's appropriate, I tell her like, hey, I didn't know about this then, or I'm doing my best, but of course there's things. I think part of being a good parent is realizing, yeah, there's things I know now that I would have done different,
Yes.
But that's just part of it.
Yeah. So given the experience that you had, what kind of advice would you give to single parents who are just stepping onto the single parenting journey? What was like most important, do you think?
Yeah. Well, I might have a couple. The one thing that sticks out for me that I'm still working on, because it's just an ongoing life practice,
Mm-hmm.
but that I wish I did more of, is been even more present with my daughter, and like I said, continue to be present when I can be, when it's time for presence, because I think, as a single mom, I know for myself, like I had to make a living.
Yeah.
But even if you don't, there's sometimes you have multiple kids. I don't, but there's the emotional torment. You might have your heart broken. You might be totally scared. You might be grieving how you thought it would be. You might be grieving. I mean, depending on the divorce, he could have left you. You could have been cheated on. There's like some level I know for myself of like abandonment, even abandonment in some ways that I felt like I abandoned myself. So my point is, with all that a single parent is dealing with, normally heartbreak, often like the legal SHIT, the legal like papers and lawyers. And I know for me, like I was stressed out. Like I'd go to read papers and I'm like, I don't understand what it's saying. Like the overwhelm and the bombardment of all that you're managing, and to try to not have that negatively affect your child. So even though Violet was only 1.5, our children are picking up energetically, not even the words. I mean, maybe if they're older and they understand the words or reading body language, but even if they're not, like, I happen to have parents that would maybe say the right words sometimes, but I could feel the stress, the tension, the fear, the opposite of sometimes what they're saying. So really doing your best as a single parent to, like, okay, I'm totally stressed out, or I'm totally heartbroken, or I'm a mess right now. And there were times that I was, unfortunately, I would overdrink or start over dating, or there's these habits that I went into, not when I had her, but certainly on those few days when I didn't have her. I was just thinking about it the other day, actually, like, wow, I was kind of a mess sometimes, just trying to hold it together, and how important it is to do your best, to do whatever you can do, whatever you have to do, that when you're with your child or your children, to try to find a place of peace, the best you can, to try to remember, like, I'm going to be okay. They're going to be okay. Even if you have a hard time, accessing that feeling, that it's really, really, really worth it to find that, to emanate that, to be that vibrationally, to hold that space, to make them feel safe. Because a lot of trauma, and it can be small t trauma, not like necessarily like an attack or something like that, but like small t trauma, meaning like what we absorb as babies, what we absorb as children, what we absorb as in our adolescence, just comes from that unease, just comes from my mom was heartbroken and stressed out, and that your child is absorbing that. So you can't be perfect. So, like, give yourself a break. But if I could do it again, I think I would have been more diligent at, okay, I'm going through all this stuff, but let me try to put that aside and be as present and safe feeling in myself, so that I can really, really provide that, so that Violet can absorb that. And I think I did that most of the time. I think I did that to the best of my ability. I just think, it makes us have to take care of ourselves. And when we can prioritize it as not a selfish thing, but as a thing of, if I do a lot of self-care, it is in the best interest of my daughter. If I do all that self-care, whether it's meditation, taking a bath, journaling, however you do that, but that the things that help you feel composed on the inside, in this, what can be like a shitstorm at the time of heartbreak, legal stuff. Maybe you're moving, maybe you're getting out of a violent or abusive situation, maybe you don't know where you're going to stay or what you're going to eat. But to prioritize feeling good the best you can, so that your children can feel that and get that from you, and your presence with them. I really wish that I had the wherewithal to, on my times I didn't have her, or after, she went to bed, I wish that I didn't do it often, but I wish I didn't turn to drinking or to online dating or to, and I don't want to shame myself, and I don't believe in shaming others, or the judgment doesn't help. But I wish I dove into writing a book, or, something else. I wish I dove into healthier things instead of a little bit of a self-destructive thing that, I got out of it fine, But I just wish that I handled it even better, you know.
Yeah, I think it is so true when you are dealt with the situation, where you're in the situation, being present and being overwhelmed by everything that's going on, especially if you're brand new and let's say you just given birth or it's been recent. So you're going through all those changes, the hormones, the physical stuff, the legal stuff, the divorce.
Yeah, I should have joined a support group.
Yeah.
I could have, this was 10 years ago. Facebook existed, but like wasn't using it a lot, but um I wish that I had sought out emotional support more, things like that. That I know there's even more of that available now. Facebook groups, podcasts like this. Like I wasn't listening to podcasts. I wasn't reading a book about single parenting or, a woman moving through, there's things I could have done. And again, I did some of those things. I wasn't like a total mess. I was always meditating. I was always, I was still having like a career in coaching and in healing and things. But I could have done more, and it would have helped more. That's all. And so I really, encourage someone in that, what can be the worst time of your life or one of the worst times of your life, to seek out nourishment. Really seek out nourishment and see the value of, not just for you, but you're your child's, you're the world to your parents. I mean, to your parents, you're the world to your children. You being the parent is everything to them. And so the stronger, the more loving, the more peaceful, the more, and I don't mean together from the outside in a superficial way. I mean like in a meaningful way to you on the inside, that you can be, just the better it is for everyone, most
Yeah,
importantly,
yeah,
your children.
so true. What do you think is the most important trait to instill in a child?
Mm. I would, there's a couple. One thing that I can say for sure, um, is a belief in themselves, to be self-referencing, um, to, and I do this with Violet a lot, as she's 11, but she is a kind of a precocious, advanced, mature, 11. And I mean that in like, in a deep spiritual way, but also in a very, she's more like a 13-year-old, and she's kind of fast in that way. Not in an inappropriate way, but she's aware of that. And I was that way too. And to have her be able, because I'm not there to, it's not my job to control her. It's my job. I'm responsible for her. Um, but she's not my possession, and I'm not going to be there to tell her what to do. And that just doesn't really work in the long run. My role, and even if we took that approach, good luck, because that control approach, there's going to be a time that it's up to them. And that's what we want for our children, is that they go out and not do everything we say, or at least for me, that she goes out and is so self-referencing that she really thinks to herself, what do I really want to do here? And so to instill in her that place where she kind of turns around and looks at herself and goes, who do I want to be here? And yes, sometimes she's going to make that decision that doesn't turn out well, that has negative consequences, of course. But that even in that instance, which is going to happen, without a doubt, that she goes, okay, well, now what am I going to do? Well, now how am I going to respond? Well, now who do I want to be? Okay, well, maybe I feel really bad. Well, now do I want to beat myself up, or do I want, like, that she continues to grow inner trust, that inner relationship, that inner resilience, that inner how do I take care of myself from the inside out? Knowing sometimes that's going to look like reaching out to me, reaching out to a friend, whatever. But I think when we help them grow that ability that they trust themselves, not that they trust that everything they do is right, but that they have that, they've grown that invisible skill of that inner musculature, as one of my favorite coaches that I've worked with always called it, that inner musculature, that invisible musculature, to like, okay, I can trust myself to get through this challenge, or I can trust myself to make a decision, or I can trust myself that if I make, a decision that has negative consequences, I can trust I'll work through this, or I'll learn from this, or I'll deal with this, or I'll cope with this, so, what I want for her more than anything is that she grows such a healthy relationship with herself, that she can trust herself to make, good decisions in partnerships, good decisions in friends. And, if and when her friends, one friend is trying drugs, that more than in her head, me saying, no, 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 drugs are bad, drugs are going to kill you, that she actually, because whatever, that was just, an example, but that she makes the decision for herself. What does Violet say for Violet? That she's checking in on her intuition, that she's checking in, not because, oh, my mom's going to punish me, or I'm going to get caught, or I'm going to get grounded, but she has such a relationship with herself, because that way it serves her entire life in every single realm, all the time. And then she'll be herself, because my goal for her is not that she turns into the daughter I want her to be, is not that she turns into a certain success, or is not that she marry a certain type, or that she does a certain thing. Again, she's not on this earth to be who I want her to be. She's herself. And my job is to support her in being herself. And I get the privilege and the honor of seeing who she is. And I get the privilege and the honor of being a part of that. And I form it with her. I'm a co-creator, collaborative partner with her. And I know who I'm being influences who that's going to be. But I'm not under the impression that she is mine to create. I want to instill in her that I respect her for who she is, and she's going to become and continue becoming who she is, and it's not for my approval.
Right. Yeah, I think it's so true. My best thing is that when I'm no longer around, that they can take care of themselves, that they
Right.
can make the choices that they feel are right, and not have a breakdown.
Right. And to look, I think exactly, to look at, like, for themselves, what are the consequences? Like, you think for yourself. And yeah, sometimes there is a time and a place, and it happens all the time, every day still, of like, the answer is no. The answer is yes. But then, at least half of the time, I say, what do you think? If you stay up till this time, it's the summer right now. And if you're really tired tomorrow, there's really no, is that an okay consequence considering what your day looks like tomorrow? Great, then go for it. And this comes up a lot in diet for us, and in food and what she eats.
Mm-hmm.
There's some guidelines of, like, I expect you to eat vegetables daily.
Right.
She still doesn't eat the 5 to 7 amount daily. And it is where it is. I would do that again too. I would have raised her just eating more vegetables. The fruit, she gets plenty of fruit, but like, I would have, it's a regret of mine of just not making her, because, like, just eat, this is broccoli, this is dinner, type of thing. But I was stressed out and like, oh God, just eat the crackers, um, However, I do talk to her about, like, we talk openly about sugar and what it is. And I don't want to shame her into not eating candy and eating vegetables. But at the same time, I want to educate her. Well, this is what this type of food does. And you might not see a ton of effects now, but as an adult, it might show up like sugar. Processed food is full of chemicals, and you might be full of energy and strength now, and that's wonderful. And I also don't want to curse her and say, if you eat this, you will have this problem. Like, that's not, I also don't want to put the fear in her,
Right.
but I want to say, like, I'm not, like you said, I'm not going to be around forever. So think about how long you'll be in a body. We don't know, but you certainly your entire life, however long that is. And how do you want it to function for you?
Yes.
And knowing that vegetables and minerals and healthy meats and proteins and a diet that, you know, that has these things is going to provide that for you. And, you know, if I create a situation, and food is just a great example, but this goes in every area of her life. If I create a situation where she only eats this way because I'm controlling and watching and forcing it, she has the ability and will have the ability to go take her money from chores and spend it all on candy and binge in her room. I don't want her to do that. I don't want her to have like some kind of weird relationship with food. I don't want her to feel like she has to hide it. I don't want her to, like, as soon as she's an adult, all she eats is junk food because I was so strict. You know, I want her to be responsible for her relationship with food, her relationship with money, her relationship with people, her relationship with school, her relationship with her body. Like, that's the best I can give her is you think for yourself and figure it out for yourself. And hey, you're not going to do it perfect. No one ever did. Or, you know, maybe Jesus did. Like, that's up for debate. But like, hey, I don't expect you to do it perfectly. I don't. But it is my job to help you love yourself. And that includes not shaming yourself, but thinking of not just your now, but your later. And pleasure and happiness is a big part of my life and a big part of her life and a big part of how we relate in our home and our lifestyle. So I'm not super strict, but I do put it on her a lot of the time and say, you know, you think about it. Or if you were the mom, or you were your own mom, or you were parenting yourself, what do you think is best? You know, and so far, how that's worked for us is my daughter is, I trust her. I really trust her. I trust, again, not perfect, but I trust her to make good decisions, and I trust her to sometimes be okay with making the wrong decision and learning from it. And she's a conscientious, responsible kid that I'm proud of. And, you know, I like who she is, and I like how she is. And there is a respect there that I think is really important.
Yes, I think it is so true that I think this is the most important trait, is the belief in oneself.
Yeah.
When there is nobody there, are you going to be your own cheerleader, or are you going to wait for somebody to confirm or give you praise? But
Because it bleeds out in every single area of your life, in every relationship.
Yes,
you know?
yes. So we want to make sure they have that innate ability to rely on themselves, and when necessary, ask for help. But having that
Absolutely
kind of temperature to check, okay, I cannot do it by myself, I need to ask for help. Or in this
Yeah, and
situation,
that's part of trusting yourself too. What are your limits?
yeah.
You know, what are your boundaries? You know, do you love yourself enough to ask for help? Because sometimes there's this false idea of I can do it on my own. It's like, well, no, you can't. Not without burnout. Not like you can't do it. Like we need each other. You know, there's a time and a place to delegate and to ask for help and to receive help. And then there's a time and a place to handle your stuff that's yours.
Yes, so true. If people would like to find you, connect with you more, where would they go?
Yeah, thanks. So my website, my business is Vanessa Rae of Light, because my mission is, that's what we all really came here to be. is a ray of light, is a spark, is to give, to shine in our own unique way. So I do a little play on words, and it's Vanessa Rae of Light. So my website is www.vanessa, my first name, and then raeoflight.com. And on that site, you'll see mostly where I help women and girls with body image issues, losing weight in a healthy, natural way through a spiritual process, really from the inside out. And also having a healthy relationship, not just with themselves in the mirror and their body, but with food, and how to be non-neurotic, basically. So that's a place to find me. You can also email me if you want to talk, about something else and more about parenting or anything like that. And that is VRAE of light, OFLIGHT @gmail.com. And you could find me on Facebook, Vanessa Rae. Vanessa Rae of Light is also there. And then I have a YouTube channel. If you put in Vanessa Rae of Light, you'll find some of my stuff and my own show that hopefully, Irina, you will be on someday, the Divine Body Align show.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming
You're
on.
so welcome. Thank you for
sharing your
inviting
story.
me. Well, it's so not. I'm so glad you do this. This is such a needed, I think, a needed thing to let people know they're not alone, and give people tips and comfort and compassion for how difficult this can be, but also just what a great role we play as parents and as single parents, and try and to make it work in our own way. But I also really honor what you were saying and what we shared in common as far as giving our children the gift of their own relationship to themselves, trusting that.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your wisdom and your story. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you.